everybody. This is the old Henderson Real News Show. Organize, don't criticize. I want to thank you all for listening and viewing the old Henderson Real News Show. We welcome your support. We have been getting some of your information through our YouTube stance. We also hear from some of you on Facebook. And I want you to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that this is our last, next to the last show for 2023. And today I will give you a short summary of some of the things that we must be able to accomplish in 2024. And it'll be in 3 topics this evening. The first topic that we will put a few minutes on is to look at some of the problems black folks are going to face worldwide in 2024. The second thing we're going to show and address and hope you understand that you have some serious problems, and that is, are you ready for World War III Part 1? We are going to prove to you today, and you're not going to hear this until later on. It's going to take about 6 months before you hear it on the other news channels and from sources. People don't want to talk about it right now. But we're going to prove to you today that World War III Part 1 is upon us, and it's going to be very serious in 2024. And since things are going to be tough, educationally, economically, you're going to find, too, that the last thing we will share with you this evening is how to escape poverty. Ways to escape poverty. Some of you know you have some hard days ahead. Poverty is upon you. Many of you now have already gotten yourselves in debt during the last 30 days, Thanksgiving and Christmas. I understand from a lot of my people that they have borrowed money already. I mentioned this a few weeks ago. Borrowed money for Thanksgiving. They borrowed money for Christmas. They're wasting time going on vacations they can't afford, having funerals they can't afford, having family reunions they can't afford, spending thousands of dollars that they don't even have, and many have borrowed money to take care of those items. I'm telling you, folks, when you owe money and you can't pay your rent and you have to borrow money for 2 months or 1 month at the end of the year and then pay that loan back 6 months and prepare to do the same thing in another 3 or 4 months, borrowing money again, you will not be able to escape poverty. And that's what we'll be talking about today. But the first thing I want you to understand, as we put emphasis on black folks in the old Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, I'm just going to share with you one more time. And I want you all to hear this so many times, and you're definitely going to do it until you're going to get tired of it, and then you're going to do something about it. I want you to keep in mind that your economic and political pecking order in America, folks, has dropped from number 2 to number 10. Every group in America, every group, has more power, more decision-making non-ability than black folks. Decision-making non-ability. It means you have no ability to make decisions for yourself. You don't have that ability, folks, because you are doing some things that you need to make some adjustment on, and that's the first thing you must understand. What should I do in 2024 that I didn't do too much of in 2023? And I'm going to tell you one more time that in order to have semi-democracy in this country and worldwide for black folks, you're going to have to face some problems that I've been talking about for some time, and I'm just going to give you a summary of some of the problems that you must face, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to deal with World War III Part 1 that's already taken place, which we'll show you from what we call media sources in just a few minutes. Now, if you want to know what your problems are, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you. Talk about black folks and other people that are guilty of this thing. And one of the most serious problems, ladies and gentlemen, that black people and others are facing is they love their enemies too much. Most people don't love their enemies, and I will prove it to you in a few minutes when we talk about this potential war that has already started, that some people want to pretend has not developed yet. World War III, Part 1. You love your enemies, and you get yourself killed. You fight your enemies, and both of you will get killed. Now who should die? You or your enemies, or both of you? I let you decide that. So that's the first problem black people are going to have to face worldwide. Who is my enemy? Those that are denying you your constitutional rights. Those that are teaching you to hate yourself. Those that have always said, I am dominant over you. You are subordinate to me. You are an outcast. You are a member of a permanent underclass in America and throughout the world, black folks. That's some people that I consider just might be your enemy. Those same people will tell you, I am going to do everything I can to keep you in your status. I will use the court system against you. I will put you in prison and give you long terms, 15, 20, 30 years, for a little minor drug problem. Selling a little marijuana, smoking a little marijuana, lying, cheating, speeding, walking down the street, going home with a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken in your hand. And you get stopped by the police. And they ask you, where are you going? Give me some ID. Or you go down the road a little further in your neighborhood, get stopped by some of those gangbangers. They're going to take the chicken and your money. And if you have on a watch, they're going to take that. And if you start talking and say, leave me alone, brother, and you open your mouth and you have a gold tooth, they're going to knock that out and take that. Folks, you're hated at every turn. I'm going to tell you, folks, you got to address this problem in 2024. I'm not like some people that pretend that your only problem is dealing with white folks that are abusing you throughout the world. That's true. I will tell you, too, that your greatest enemy is within you. Yourself, for instance. Your cousin. Sometimes your brother, your uncle, your aunt, all of those folks that's living in the hood with you, that are robbing and stealing, taking your resources, selling you and your children drugs, breaking into your house anytime they get ready, and you won't even turn them in. That shows that you love your enemy more than you love yourself. That's the number one problem facing black people worldwide. You don't know who your enemies are. I just told you. You are your first enemy. The police and the court system, they work together. That's your second enemy. And the third enemy are all those folks in your neighborhood that you know that's killing you, robbing you, selling your drugs, raping your daughters and your sons. Folks, it's bad news. I hope you don't want to hear it. And I hope you challenge me on this. And when you feel that I'm wrong about this, I want you to call us at 601-201-1957 and tell me with evidence that I'm wrong so I can apologize next week. Think about it, folks. The man must be wrong because I don't believe this happening. The next problem that you have, black folks, that you must face is religion. I call it non-actionable, non-accountability religion. Most of you are alleging that you are Christians in America. I'm talking about all Americans now. When you do the studies and look at the reviews, you'll find that most people in America are considered Christians. And I talk about this often. What do Christians do? They're supposed to love the Lord, love themselves. When they sin a little bit, they're supposed to seek repentance. According to Reverend Jennings, they're supposed to be baptized and honor one God, be submerged, and then follow the Ten Commandments if they know them. Folks, that's what you're supposed to do no matter what religion you have, Christian or non-Christian. Just yesterday, on Tuesday, by the way, we talked about some of the 3 major religions in the world, and all of them tell us that there's a God that you're supposed to serve. And if you have some guidelines, or what I call living points, you need to address them. The next thing you got to understand, black folks and poor folks throughout the world, and when I say black folks, I mean all the people of color that don't consider themselves Europeans. You're always in the same group. But the black people are number 1 in that group on the bottom. You have to think about something that has destroyed you during the last 550 years, and you don't like to hear it because it makes your blood boil when you hear the truth. And that thing that hurt us, folks, seriously hurt us. And that's when black folks, starting in the mid-1960s, told themselves that all of our institutions, our schools, our neighborhoods, all of our political endeavors, our churches, and everything else must go. We're going to have to integrate. We're going to have to give all of our money to others. That is a fact, and that is a problem that black people decided to take upon themselves. Say, love others more than self. Love my enemies more than self. So therefore, that created in the 1960s something that is another serious problem for black people worldwide. And that is what I call self-hatred. Individually. And then its cousin is called group distrust and hatred. That's not only black people in America. That's black people in Africa, in Asia, in India, even those few that you find at the North Pole, and all those in other continents. Central America, Latin America. Loving your enemies, religion, integration, group distrust, and self-hatred. Those things, folks, are killing you. You got to look at it in 2024. The other thing that I tell black people and been telling them for many years, that is a problem you must address in 2024, because if you don't do this, folks, you're not going to be able to deal with this serious World War III Part 1 that's going to be upon you in a serious manner in 2024. You're going to have to get ready and start thinking about miseducation. That's why I'm talking to you today. I want you to get some new education, some new understandings, so you can have some new instructions to follow in 2024 and beyond. Listen to me, black folks. You're going to have to think about saving yourself. There's no one in the world that will save you. It's not going to be your religion. It's most certainly not going to be your enemies. It's not going to be the integrated forces that you want to leave your resources and go to them. They're going to strip you naked economically, socially, politically. And then they're going to call their 2 boys that stand by them 100%, the police and the court system. And when they put those 2 groups on you, even if you're not guilty, you might serve 5 to 30 years in prison, being judged by people that didn't even see you, don't know you, but go to court and identify you as the person that pulled the trigger. when you were in another state. So that's bad news. I've been talking about it all this past year. And I'm telling you now, ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young kids, if you're over 2 years of age, folks, if you have anybody in your house right now that's 2 years of age or older, if they are not in the bed sleep, you need to call them and get their attention and tell them to listen to the Henderson Real News Show. He's talking about organizing. He is saying you don't criticize the human enemies of mankind, their relatives, and their financial supporters. He is telling you to love self. So get those folks out of that back room. I tell you this all the time. I want you to feel guilty. You have the young kids in the bed right now, on the telephone, back in the back room, looking at television, getting ready to go somewhere. And many of them not even 18 years of age. And they're not coming back until sometime Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. I'm talking about next week, not tomorrow. Come back when you get ready. And then time to get shot somewhere, you're hollering, squalling, and calling Mr. Trump, that attorney that'll come in and get you some real money if you're fortunate. So I like to hit these points that'll get you upset, that'll get you angry, where you say to yourself, he is not talking about me. He is not talking about anyone I know because I am organized. Is he criticizing me? Of course not. If you are hearing facts, and if you are guilty of anything that you hear today, and still spending all your money, about 98%, with your enemies, you have to determine whether you're guilty. And when these things happen, folks, guess what that other problem you have that you've been facing is self-destruction. When you get to the point where you have borrowed all the money you can, haven't been able to pay your debts, then you get that notice from your apartment owner or that mortgage banker telling you you're not paying your bills, you got to go, I'm going to give you 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. Or you go and find that your car is gone. You calling the police and telling them someone stole my car last night. You know you're lying. You know you have not paid that car note in 3 months. Those boys towed it away. You know that would happen. So you have to think about what's going to happen when all of these things start addressing you as an individual, as a family. Then you're going to self-destruct. You don't want to hear it. You're going to go and buy some more liquor. You're going to buy some more dope that you've been buying since Thanksgiving and start taking it heavily in early January. You're going to miss 2 or 3 days a week, the first 30 days from that job you don't like, because you're going to be high, broke. You're going to be killing yourself. You're going to be destructive because you're saying, I love my enemy more than I love myself, more than I love my family. I hate myself. Some of you don't know anything but the truth, and you know you're hearing it right now. My job is not to make you feel good and talk about things that's not going to help you. I'm not going to tell you to love everybody when you hate yourself, when you don't even look out for your family, when you spend all of your money on things you don't need, just trying to appease your neighbors and your relatives and friends, pretending you can do what you can't do. Think about it, folks. That's the first part of our show today that's going to be giving you the information you need, because when I give you the hard news in a few minutes, some of you are going to say, well, I just don't believe it. When I give you that hard news about World War III, Part 1, that's already started in the Middle East. You're going to say, I know that's not true. I hope to God it's not true. That's what you're going to tell yourself. And then you find if there is a war between nations, guess what's going to happen? Both groups are going to pray to the same God and say, God, allow me to win. We are liberators. We are fighting for justice. We are fighting for democracy. We are fighting for self-control of our territories, of our nation, or my precinct, or my city, my state. I'm not only talking about the Middle East. I'm talking about North America, South America, Asia, Africa. We all have the same problems. So I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, you need to start recording this information on your cell phones, or just go and buy you a small recorder if you don't have one, and listen to this information every other day, because you're not going to hear it anywhere else. Others going to tell you how to feel good, what the Lord told them to tell you, which he hadn't told them anything. So I'm telling you now, the Lord is endorsing the good and the bad guys. They are praying to him to be winners. Who will he listen to? Who is the good guy? The one that has the big power, the one that has the big military. Who is the big guy on the other side? The one that has less power, but he doesn't mind committing suicide. He doesn't mind shooting a few rockets here and there, knowing he's going to get bombed, because he knows if he gets killed and you don't kill all of his relatives and his friends, he's going to attack you again, because they believe that you fight until you're exterminated. That means you have these generational wars. The more you fight, the more you die, the more you have to prepare to fight the next day, the next year, the next 10 years, the next 50 years, the next 250 years. Right now, we did the research the other day. Ladies and gentlemen, to your unbelief, there are over 350 wars going on right now in the world. Over 350 between different nations, within some of the same nations, within some of the same states. Folks, that might not be good news, but I'm telling you, the headlines are saying you need to get ready for World War III Part 1. I say it's here. And in just a few minutes, folks, we're going to take a break, in 1 minute, by the way. And I want you all to be prepared to hear what is happening worldwide that's going to impact your lives very, very seriously in 2024. Some of you are not going to believe it until someone starts knocking on your door, asking you to do certain things, telling you that you can't buy gas this week, that we are going to have to turn off the computers this week, every day at noon. That's happening in the world right now. Telling you that your lights are going to be turned off every other day. That's happening right now. Telling you that there will be no water coming into your house for the next 2 days. That is happening right now in certain countries. So folks, as I yield to our underwriters, I've just heard from my producer, and it's time to take this break. But before I leave, I want to tell you to call someone right now and tell them to type in www.webelieveddigital.com and listen to the Elder Henderson Real News Show. We'll be back in just a minute, folks. Stay tuned.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee. To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, Keepers of the Knowledge for People Who Speak the Truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Okay, folks, this is the L. Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, Part 2 for Thursday. I want you to understand again that this is real news, the only place you're going to get the real news, one that is not going to just cover it up because it's bad, it's not good for you. Some of you say it is good. Some say, I don't mind hating myself. That's the way I've been raised all my life. I don't mind being miseducated. I love my enemies. I love my religion. I love this self-destructive mode that I'm in that's been in my family for generations after generations. We know it's a fact, but I'm just telling you about it. And if you're guilty or you know someone is, talk to them. Just pull them aside. Don't condemn them. Do not condemn them. Tell them, I think you need to make some adjustments. Because if you don't, someone else will. You're going to be dealt with in a very negative manner worldwide. And that's what I'm telling you in this segment. This is part 2. Folks, some of you don't know that certain things about to happen in 2024 that's going to change your life in 30, 60, and 90 days. But it won't hit most of you until 3, 4 to 6 months before you actually believe it. And here is the question for part 2. Are you ready for World War III Part 1? Are you ready? Yes or no? Now I have some headlines here that I'm going to address so you can see that you have some serious problems to deal with, people, worldwide. Some serious problems. And if you don't address some of your problems that I just mentioned, those of you that are guilty, you are not going to be able to survive during this war. World War III Part 1. Listen to the facts. The United States private military company, Bancroft Global Development, is discussing with the Central African Republic over providing security. Now, this private military company, Bancroft Global Development, is in Central African Republic providing security because the United States, who is supporting this private military company, wants to take some of the highlight away from the Russians that have a lot of influence in the African Republic, Central African Republic. Some of you know, and some don't, that there are 55 different nations in Africa, the richest continent in the world. The Africans have everything they need to survive and be the number 1 nation in the world without imports or exports, if they will use it. some of the best land, surrounded by oceans. I'm talking about the nation, the various nations, the African continent. Have every mineral resource you can find to build the best computers, to do anything you want. Fish everywhere, wild animals, tame animals, some of the best water, the best forests, anything you want, except the fact that the Russians, the Chinese, the Europeans, and the United States want to manage or rule or take these resources from the Africans, from those black folks in the Caribbean area, from those so-called colored folks in Latin and Central America and other places. And they're going to do it the old-fashioned way. They're going to give millions and billions of dollars to private military companies like Bancroft Global Development. And those guys, ladies and gentlemen, get billions of dollars and go to those areas and demand that those African governments, those governments in Latin America and other places, pay them millions of dollars to provide security for them, because they know that they have weak armies themselves, because their friends, which I call their enemies, made sure that they don't have a national army of any respect. They don't have a military force with jets. They don't have nuclear weapons like their sponsors. They don't have educational institutions where they can get degrees in engineering. Don't have major law schools. They are giving their children the opportunity to go to Europe, go to America, go to the big schools in Ukraine, in Russia, in the Middle East, and other places. So now this company, Bancroft Global Development, got this discussion going on with the Central Republic of Africa to provide security so they can get that influence waned from the Russians. And at the same time, folks, I'm telling you that you will find that the folks in Washington offered the Republic of Africa, the Central African Republic, support and help them finance this agreement with this private military. The folks in Russia had one. And old Putin decided he was not going to be dominated by a private group. He had this guy allegedly killed that was running his company, an old guy named Eugenius Posgeskin. He disappeared in August, and he was a private contractor. And right now, Putin has taken over that regime, and Wagner Defense Company, which is a private contractor, has all kind of assets in Africa right now, including gold and mineral mines. And they are being continually funded by Russia, because Russia needs gold. They need minerals. They need diamonds. So they can fund their invasion in Ukraine. Where are those people getting their money from to fight the Russians? From the same place the Bancroft Global Development Company, the private military company, is getting theirs. They're getting it from the United States. Russia is taking care of their company. The Chinese throwing in aid, military weapons, sometimes money. Sometimes they have people that are joining these private armies because they're open to men and women all over the world. There are a lot of people that just follow war. They love war. And they'll go and get those big-time contracts with private military forces and fight all over the world. They make good money, too. And these private companies, ladies and gentlemen, like former military guys and girls. They're like those that have their MOS, military occupations, in infantry, how to be sharpshooters, bomb makers, pilots, tankers, and intelligence officers and spies. That's who they pay. So when they leave that military making $30,000 to $50,000 a year, they can get with those private military companies and make $150,000 tax-free. Sign up for 1 or 2 or 3 years and travel all over the world. That is what's happening. And now with this serious African government and the others that's under attack by the Russians, the Chinese, sometimes the North Koreans and other nations, they are trying to take over Africa, and they're fighting among themselves. And now with the other part of this is getting worse. I'm going to show you that you got something to be concerned about, ladies and gentlemen, because the actions that I'm talking about is leading to World War III Part 1. Along with this, you will find that the Israelis warn Lebanon over Hezbollah. Israel has attacked targets in Lebanon, which is another nation, and say we're going to continue to attack you if the Lebanese government does not stop Hezbollah. These are so-called militant groups from launching rockets in Israel. Now, all of these so-called militant groups, they are called terrorists by the people they fight. The people they fight are looked at as terrorists and what we call colonizers to them. If they're caught, they're going to be punished as traitors. Many are going to be hanged, put in prison for years. Some going to be assassinated on both sides. That's what war is all about. And you will find, folks, that according to this headline, there have been constant exchanges of fire between Israeli forces and other militants between these two countries. And many of these rockets, believe it or not, are coming from Lebanon, an independent country. And therefore, since the Israelis and others are bombing each other, there's a lot of growing tension in the area. And you can expect a lot of violence, bombing, assassinations, suicides. Now, this growing tension and violence, according to our information, is going to be coming from the Syrians, from Yemen, from Iraq, and it's going to add fear and more war in this region. I've already mentioned 4 nations that's involved: Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iraq. And then I mentioned some of the sponsors of these wars in this area: the Japanese, North Korea, Europe, United States, Chinese, Russians. All of these people work together. And they usually, after they get tired and their resources get limited, after they kill everybody they can, destroy every nation they can, they then get together, have something called a conference. They pull out the maps and say, we're going to draw a line here. You take this part, I take the other part. And then they will have something called a ceasefire. And a ceasefire means that didn't anyone win the war, they just stopped it while they plan for the next war. And that's why I'm telling you right now, World War III, Part 1, has begun. You get ready for it, folks. You get ready, because it's going to get serious, much more serious than it has been since World War II. I know a lot about World War II. I had a lot of old relatives that participated in World War II. My father, uncles, grandparents, a lot of folks. And then I had that opportunity myself to participate in war. See what I'm talking about? My son and daughters will have a chance to participate in the war because they are probably going to be fighting over in the Middle East, fighting against the Russians, the Chinese, North Korea, the Lebanese, the Syrians, those guys and girls from Iraq. You're going to be fighting, folks. The U.S. Navy is already shooting down missiles in the region. So that means the United States is involved currently as we speak. You're not going to hear much about it. They're going to just act like it's not happening, and they're going to keep news about Joe Biden and Trump as the forefront news to keep your mind calm and talk about the election of 2024. Who should we take, Trump or Biden? You all decide that. And while you all are deciding, they're going to be fighting. And they're going to be calling your sons and daughters and telling the guys that's in the military, you can't leave right now, Doc. We have something planned for you. We're going to tell you, you got to give us 6 months. Tell others in special areas that have what I call desires in artificial intelligence that's out there working as insurgents in the countries. If you are an insurgent, they don't even know you're a military person. You're just walking around like a tourist, checking out things, talking to people, spying. And then when they catch you and put you in prison, that's why you find the governments, the Russians, the Europeans, the Americans, the Japanese, North Koreans, and others will exchange people from time to time that were alleged to be journalists and regular American citizens that are tourists on a tour guide with their family. They catch them, put them in prison. And many of those guys serve hard times, 2 and 3 years before they're exchanged, before they are sent back to their country. That's your son. That's going to be your daughter. That's going to be your father, that career military man. You're going to face this, folks, in 2024. Folks don't want to talk about it. And I've been told that, you shouldn't say that. That'll get people upset. Don't you know they got a new year coming? They don't need to hear the bad news. You're always supposed to know where the bad news is so you can get prepared for it, ladies and gentlemen. Because if you can't deal with the problems that are about to come, and then you already have some on you that you can't handle, that's where you will have more self-destruction, more self-hatred. And that's where you will have more poverty. And that's the last part I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be telling you in part 3 of this series, how to escape poverty. Because if you continue to borrow money, if you continue to spend money that you don't have, that you will never have, one day they're going to be coming calling. Say, I want my money. And you're going to say, I don't have it. Then they're going to tell you you got to move. They're not going to give you 30 days. Now, even though legally you ought to have 30, 60 days, it all depends on what county or state you're in, before the police will come in, usually the sheriff or someone like that, and throw your stuff out on the street. They will throw your stuff out, now I'm telling you, and tell you you can't go back in the house. And here you are, sitting on the streets, sitting on your couch in January, February, March. Nowhere to go. The shelters are full. Because the immigrants got all the little space that's left in the shelters, which they are getting more favors than the people in America and other countries. They come in over here in America about 10,000 a week. Some say more. And they give them wonderful opportunities. Put them on buses and send them all over the United States. They don't have to pay a penny. They got terrorists in those groups. They have people that are looking for political asylum. They have others that are involved in activities in their government, and the government told them, we're going to put you in prison if you don't get out of town. So all of them just get together, come over here by the thousands. The Democrats allow it. The Republicans allowed it. And all they are doing now is just talking about it. And the governors down in the regional areas, in Texas and Florida and other places, are saying, we can't handle these folks. So they send them all over the United States, New York City, Washington, and other places. And they build them nice places. We call them tent cities. They are renovating old hotels and other places. They're getting ready now to get money and build subdivisions for these folks. I'm not saying they shouldn't do that, but I'm also saying, though, they ought to do that for the homeless that's already in America. They shouldn't allow that. You all shouldn't have the hard-nosed idea that homeless people ought to be homeless, living on the streets. You shouldn't have the nerves to vote for a city council person or a mayor that will allow thousands of people to live on the streets, under tents, boxes, some just covering up at night in a sleeping bag. Whole families got all kind of mental problems, drug problems, alcohol problems, and some just normal people just don't have a job, couldn't pay the rent. They have no physical limitations or disabilities. They have to live on the street, live under the railroad track. And the voters allow it, and the politicians don't care. So folks, if you want to keep in mind that you must look out for yourself and do things that's going to promote your interests as an individual, which will tell you that you must come up with some kind of self-improvement so you can help your family do better. And then your community, you will find then you will start putting fear in the heart and minds of your enemies. They are saying the black people throughout the world are becoming self-lovers or lovers of self. They love their family. They are building their community. They are pooling their resources. They are dominating in areas where they're in the majority. They are doing agreements and memorandums of understanding with their neighbors and groups on the precinct level, in the cities, in the counties, in the states. They are training their own leaders. They are recruiting. They are selecting. And they are putting their own leaders, starting in high school, in positions of responsibility, putting them on commissions, putting them in what I call economic development groups, teaching them what we call entrepreneurship skills, teaching them financial literacy, teaching them how to become sharp students, get on the honor roll, teaching them how to build drones, teaching those people how to solve problems, how to get away from gang activity. They are not miseducating them. They're just changing and rearranging education. All the groups that I mentioned are getting educated, it's just not the right kind that will help them because they are being channeled in the wrong direction by the people that want to dominate, that will use your tax money to pay private military groups to go in other nations and take their resources and keep them poor. And then time they raise up against them, they tell those military groups, those private armies, to go in there and assassinate the governor of this state or the president of this country, blow up the dams, frame a few and put them in prison, go and burn down the forests so they can be starving to death. Happens every day. Let's enhance the climate where it will destroy the forest. Let us have the intergroups fighting among themselves. the blacks, the whites, running the foreigners out. Let's have the rich folks in the country telling their neighbors in the Middle East and in America, we don't want your folks over here. Have them fighting each other. You cannot build a hotel in this part of town for the homeless or for the immigrants. We're not going to allow it to happen. And it's usually not going to happen. They file suits against the government, go to their number one supporters, the court system. And it takes years to get those cases settled. So I'm going to tell you by my conclusion that I will not be able to tell you folks how to escape poverty today. You're not going to learn how to escape poverty. Because some of you say poverty is not to be escaped because I don't know nothing but being poor all my life. We've been poor, according to what I've been told, for 5 generations here in America. That's what a lot of you all know to be a fact. But it doesn't hurt me. That's what you're telling yourself. I'm going to tell you, you just imagine being poor, in poverty, no money, no job, been miseducated, hate yourself, then spend all your money, and you got to deal with World War III, Part 1. They're going to get some of your boys and girls. They're going to call them. And you're going to say, well, my child's not going to worry about the war because they didn't finish high school. Hell, they're going to change those rules. They're going to do it like they told us back in the 1960s. Say, if you have 10 fingers, 10 toes, and can say, yes, sir, you're qualified to go to the war and fight. And then they told the people that planned the war, I'm going to turn a weak eye on your sons and daughters. They don't have to participate. You can put them in college, graduate school, or let them go to another country. And we'll take care of you when the war is over. The poor ones went to war. The rich ones went to another country, went to graduate school. And then when the war was over, they said, come back home. We're going to give you amnesty. We're going to say we're not going to file any charges against you. They did the same thing in the Civil War. Fought and killed each other. And then when they lost the war, the group that lost the war appealed to their good cousins and brothers and sisters and uncles and say, forgive us. Give us our land back. Give us our slaves back. And they say, of course, you are my brother. You are my sister. You are the son of my uncle. I love you. We're going to maintain the status quo. So as I conclude today, folks, I want you to keep in mind this is the Eld Henderson Real News Show. Always remember, organize, self first, family second, community third, and stop criticizing your enemies. I call them the human enemies of mankind that will kill you in a minute. Stop talking about their relatives that support them and all of those financial and corporate leaders that are always benefiting. So as I sign off today, I want to thank you again for listening. We have one more show this week, one more show. It's going to be tomorrow. It's called the Sock and Doc Show. We'll be on this same channel about from 6 until 7 tomorrow. Some areas are going to be 5 to 6 p.m. And you're going to find us on YouTube, Facebook, and all over the world. If you want to listen to us, you just go to www.webelievedigital.com or Facebook, Twitter, other social media sites, and you could get us. This is the only place you're going to get the hard news, the real news, because we don't criticize people. We just give facts. We tell you what's going to happen to you before time. But we only talk to those that are guilty. Those that are not guilty, we're not talking to you. But I guarantee you, you got some friends and relatives that you know fit all the characteristics that I mentioned during the last hour. So if you want to talk to us, folks, all you have to do is call, starting tomorrow, 601-201-1957. Or you email us at clu369@gmail.com and say, I sure want to talk to those folks at the L. Henderson Real News Network. See, he is talking about organize, don't criticize. We want those folks to come to our school, our church, our family reunion. We want them to come to our retreat, our conference. And we'll talk to you folks and give you the real news that we can't share on social media. Because some of the things that we can tell you then in private would be so realistic. And you see, your time is so short until you start doing something not in 3 to 6 months. You start doing something in your area where you're in the majority in 30, 60, or 90 days. So thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow. And easy now. Organize. Don't criticize the human enemies of mankind, their relatives, and their friends. Goodbye.